Today, more worrying signs on the inflation front. Wholesale prices post their biggest annual gain on record. Wendy's teaming up with a ghost kitchen startup to open hundreds of delivery kitchens. It's moving beyond its traditional restaurant format to keep up with the demand for delivery. And the new survey says Americans are under growing mental strain during the pandemic. How is it impacting their work? That and much more, coming up in NTD Business. Good evening, great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. More bad news on the inflation front. The price of goods at the wholesale level is rising faster than any time on record. July's Producer Price Index, or PPI, rose 7.8%. 7.8% in 1 year. That's the highest number in the history of the series, which dates back to 2010. Wholesale energy prices jumped by over 33% over the year. Goods rose nearly 12%, and food rose 9.5%. On a monthly basis, wholesale prices rose 1%. Increases in wholesale prices tend to mean a future increase in the price of goods we buy as consumers. Bad news for your wallet. Average hourly earnings only increased 0.4% in July. The government and Federal Reserve have allowed the number of dollars in circulation to grow by over 30% since February 2020. Economists often define inflation as too many dollars chasing too few goods. And the number of Americans filing for unemployment, though, fell for a third straight week last week, down to 375,000. It's still historically high level, though, well above the 250,000 claims we saw before the health crisis. In total, around 12 million people were collecting unemployment checks in late July. And Wendy's is planning to open up 700 ghost kitchens. Those are kitchens that are set up primarily not for dine-in or even takeout, but to prepare food for delivery. It's been one of the big consumer shifts during the pandemic. NTD's Colin Fredrickson delivers the latest.
Wendy's, in a news release Wednesday, announced it's going to open and operate 700 delivery kitchens over the next 5 years across the U.S., Canada, and the United Kingdom. Delivery kitchens, also known as ghost kitchens, cook food mainly for deliveries.
There's no storefront for people to visit. Most of the business, it is all third-party delivery outside the door, where even sometimes the drivers have to search for the entrance to get in.
The CEO of Asian food company Wow Bao, Jeff Alexander, started opening up ghost kitchens last year. Both he and Wendy's are working with Reef, which Wendy's calls the largest operator of mobility, logistics hubs, and kitchens.
They create vessels. It's basically a food truck, but they call them vessels, where they put a multifunction kitchen inside of it, and they work with brands to learn how to make the brand's food. And then they sell the food out of these vessels.
Jeff says they've grown very quickly with Reef, which takes care of finding the real estate, getting the equipment, hiring the people, and training them. Wendy's Chief Development Officer Abigail Pringle says this partnership with Reef is testimony to our ambitions, and that the demand for convenient delivery solutions means we must look for opportunities beyond our traditional restaurant formats. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
And Citigroup is the latest big bank to mandate vaccines for employees returning to the office. From September 13th, employees in New York, Chicago, Boston, Washington, and Philadelphia must be vaccinated and come into the office at least twice a week. For employees working at other branches, Citi is strongly encouraging, but not requiring vaccination. Those employees are required to wear masks and get tested, regardless of their vaccination status. Other companies mandating vaccines include Google, Facebook, BlackRock, Walmart, and Disney. And the United Kingdom could force Facebook to sell off its library of animated images, or Gifs. Facebook acquired Giphy last year for reportedly about $400 million. But regulators say the deal would hurt the online display advertising market. They point to Facebook ending Giphy's paid advertising partnerships following the deal. Facebook and Google dominate the digital advertising space. A related document suggested the only way to fix the problem would be for Facebook to spin off Giphy. The social media giant would then lose control of the company's huge library. Not good for users. A Facebook spokesperson said the company disagrees with the finding, though, and will work with the regulators to address concerns. A new drought time limits on the water supply from the Colorado River are hurting farmers in Arizona. The rules will force them to rethink everything from the crops they grow to how many workers they employ. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Drought and demand will soon force the first ever mandatory water supply cuts from the Colorado River. Around 40 million people across the West depend on it. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation made the decision in mid-August to impose new limits. Farmers in Arizona's Pinal County will be among the hardest hit. That means big changes for farmer Will Tillander of Tempe Farming Co.
Because of the Colorado River cutbacks, we're losing a large portion of our water, and specifically on the stuff I manage, we're losing about half our deliverable water potentially next year.
Pinal County is Arizona's top producer of cotton, barley, and livestock, and the cuts are coming earlier than expected, after the drought intensified and reservoirs dipped to historic lows. Farmers knew this was coming. Many voluntarily left fields fallow, laser-leveled the land, lined canals, installed drip irrigation, and experimented with drought-resistant crops. One potential crop that may take root in this new low-water world is guayuli, a drought-resistant shrub that could be used in rubber production. Tillander's farm is participating in a research study to see if the shrub can be used on a large scale.
Bridgestone Tire Company is doing a test to potentially grow a lot more of it, and they're looking into building a big factory in Mesa. So this plant uses about half as much water over the course of a year and on a much easier time schedule than any other crop.
Cuts to the water supply may be an environmental necessity, but it also means fewer available jobs for some farm workers. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And the latest census survey seems to show Americans' mental health is under growing strain. NTD's Evelyn Lee speaks with an expert about how isolation can lead to anxiety and depression and could impact your motivation to work.
The latest U.S. Census survey shows that Americans' mental health is deteriorating. Dr. Wilfred Rangorb is a neuropsychologist and the director of Cognitive Assessment Group. He says that the pandemic took its toll in many ways. One of them is anxiety.
That causes incredible anxiety and fear of the unknown. So when there's a first wave, then a second wave, potential for more waves, that just increases anxiety.
And even before the pandemic, researchers found that mental health can pose a serious problem for the economy.
As people become more and more depressed, they're less and less productive. And people take mental health days because they are depressed.
On top of that, previous studies argue that mental health problems can result in tens of billions of dollars in lost output for the economy. One of the costs could be workers wanting to retire earlier. Now, social isolation has become an increasing factor that also promotes depression. And new insights shows that more than 22 million Americans received counseling recently, which is an increase of 5 million compared to last year.
With increased social isolation, there's a relationship with increased prevalence of depression. So as people become more depressed, their productivity decreases, their motivation decreases.
He says that it also depletes their energy, making them want to take naps during the day. But there are a couple of ways employers can help their employees stay healthy. A monthly mental health break day or free counseling could be helpful. But individuals should also pay attention to other things.
Forcing themselves to get fully dressed as if they were at work, being outside, getting exercise, these things promote good mental health.
On top of that, he says a healthy diet and a regular sleep-wake cycle are important. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 jumped to record closes for a third straight day today. Big tech stocks driving the market higher. The Dow rose 15 points, S&P 500 gained 13 points, 0.3%, and Nasdaq added 51 points, about 1/3% today. And soccer star Lionel Messi's massive signing on fee at Paris Saint-Germain includes some of the French club's cryptocurrency fan tokens. It's the latest big name endorsement for the new digital assets. Francesca Liner reports.
Lionel Messi has received a warm welcome to Paris Saint-Germain. Thousands of screaming fans, a brand new jersey, and a payment in cryptocurrency fan tokens in his sign-on package, according to a source close to the matter. PSG didn't reveal what percentage of the deal comprised of tokens, but confirmed the former Barca player had received, quote, a large number, providing another big name endorsement for new digital assets. So what exactly are fan tokens? They are essentially just like other digital currencies, but holders can vote on mostly minor decisions related to their clubs. Among the clubs to launch tokens this year are English Premier League champions Manchester City and Italy's AC Milan. Fan tokens can be traded on exchanges. And they're also similar to Bitcoin and other digital currencies in their tendency for wild price swings, often with little connection to on-field performance or results. That has led some financial regulators to issue warnings to investors. PSG said there had been a high volume of trading of its fan tokens after reports of Messi's move to the club. The club's token, which has a market capitalization of about $52 million, soared over 130% in just 5 days amid speculation over Messi's arrival, to an all-time high of over $60.
And despite the three major indexes rising today, Chinese stocks like Alibaba, Didi, and JD.com all fell. The Chinese regime is continuing its suppression of private businesses, now targeting the online insurance industry. Japan's SoftBank, a major investor in Chinese companies, including Alibaba, says it may pause its Chinese investments for a year or two while the suppression continues. I talked to Milton Isradi about it. He was the chief investment officer for Nomura Capital Management for 14 years and spent much of his professional life analyzing China. Asked if American investors will follow Nomura's lead or if the CCP risk has already been priced into the stocks.
I think the bulk of it, for now, has been priced in, but everyone is rethinking. Across all my contacts, whether they're state-run funds or privately run money or money managers, professional money managers, all are rethinking the China risk in their portfolio. So this is not quite done. I think the bulk of it for now is done, but people will continue to reassess. And of course, a lot depends on how China behaves going forward.
A lot of people as well, they probably don't know it, but a lot of the pension funds, right? The American pension funds are also exposed to Chinese stocks. And we saw, I believe, $1 trillion was wiped off the value of Chinese equities since this happened. But a lot of these American pension funds, they tend to just track the MSCI indexes, the kind of standard indexes, am I right, which are very exposed to Chinese stocks anyway. Will they reassess their positions?
Well, they could. I mean, if they're in an index, it might be more difficult. Of course, China is now a much smaller part of the index than it was 6 weeks ago because it's all a value-based situation. So their exposure to China has fallen with the devaluation of the Chinese stocks. But they're rethinking this. I have a contact in Orange County, which is a huge public pension fund, and they say they're still rethinking their position on China. Now, they have both a link in the MSCI. They also track an emerging markets index, which has China, and an Asian index, which has China. They may say, well, to the extent that China dominates these, we're going to pull back.
That's an interesting point. So a lot of these indexes are price, depending on the price of the shares. So a lot of these Chinese stocks have fallen out. It seems to be, because we've always heard that China really relies on foreign capital, US dollars, through corporate bonds and different avenues. Does this hurt them? Is it big enough to hurt them?
I think it could be. If people avoid China, the investments in China, then it will hurt China. And as I said in many of my things I've written, of course, I don't think that bothers the Chinese Communist Party as it would any other government because they value secrecy and control over growth. But this could harm Chinese growth. They have grown throughout this enormous, fantastic growth period on foreign capital.
Interesting. And I really feel that a lot of these big companies, your Alibabas and your Tencents, they did at least among a certain number of people, they helped the Chinese image, and they helped the image of the Chinese Communist Party. They became very mainstream. Alibaba is a mainstream company, and when you think about the totalitarian nature of the CCP, you would think this is a great win for them. But how important was that innovation, and do you think this type of suppression will suppress this type of innovation going forward?
Well, I think it will, especially since the party, or Beijing, the government in Beijing, and they are one and the same, has made it very clear that they're willing to sacrifice these growth opportunities, what we would consider modern growth opportunities, whether it's Alibaba or ride-hailing or any of the other things that they have stepped on effectively. I think that there's going to be less of this kind of development that goes on. There will be less foreign capital put into it. And it defeats China in another way as well. As early as 2005, 2006, we had people in China saying, we have to shift away from manufacturing, export-oriented economy toward a more consumer-based economy, that kind of balanced growth that China needed. And this, of course, is defeating that shift.
Milton Israti, Vested. And Australia's capital city, Canberra, is going into a snap one-week lockdown starting this evening. It's after reporting its first and only locally acquired case of the virus in more than a year. Flora Bradley-Watson reports.
There was panic buying at the supermarkets in Australia's capital, Canberra, on Thursday, after it was announced that the city would go into a snap week-long lockdown. Canberra has reported its first locally acquired case of COVID-19 in more than a year. Authorities said the new measures were needed because they were unsure how the man in his 20s acquired the virus. Chief Minister of the Capital Territory, Andrew Barr.
We do not currently know the source of the infection, but extensive investigation has been underway for many hours. This is the most serious public health risk that we have faced in the Territory this year, and really since the beginning of the pandemic.
Australia's two largest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, are already in hard lockdowns as the country tries to get on top of the fast-spreading Delta variant. The government has announced it may deploy extra military personnel in Sydney to ensure compliance with the rules. Despite 7 weeks of lockdown, daily infections there continue to hover near record highs. Experts see Australia heading into a cycle of stop-and-start lockdowns until a higher vaccination coverage is reached.
Still to come this evening. IHOP is trying to drop its reputation as just a breakfast joint. It has a new offering that some may find surprising. And it's back to school shopping time again, but inflation means parents will be spending more for school supplies. We have tips on how you can save. That and more after this short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? Or spending late nights uncovering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Welcome back. Postage may cost a little extra this holiday season. The USPS wants to increase the prices for a variety of services during peak holiday season. It says it would just be a temporary rate adjustment to offset rising handling and delivery costs. And the price hike would go into effect for priority mail and first-class package service October 3rd through December 26th. The Postal Regulatory Commission still has to approve the new rates. Maybe you've heard of kegs and eggs, but what about Pilsner and pancakes? Restaurant chain IHOP is offering beer and wine at some of its locations. If IHOP makes you think of pancakes, that's part of the problem leaders there are trying to solve. The restaurant is looking for ways to make customers consider IHOP more than just a breakfast place. It's still not clear if your local IHOP will be serving up booze in the near future. Most locations are owned by franchisees. It's up to them whether they want to offer it. Some may opt out due to the expense of obtaining a liquor license and training staff. IHOP's president says he believes eventually about 1,000 of the chain's 1,700 locations will serve alcohol. And it's back to school shopping season, and the National Retail Federation is expecting record spending. But retailers aren't seeing it yet. They blame concerns about the Delta variant and supply chain issues.
Calculators, colored pencils, graph paper.
These school supplies are being bundled and sent to children in need. But the items here are on most kids' back-to-school list. And this month is peak shopping season, one expected to break records.
We're expecting record-breaking spending for both back-to-school and college this year.
Parents are projected to spend $37 billion this year, up $3 billion from last year and the highest in a decade.
A lot of this is centered around families and students expecting classes to take place in person, and they're spending more because of that.
Okay. But not at Neely's in Los Angeles. Owner Gerald Neely is celebrating 50 years in business, but not record-breaking sales.
I just haven't seen it yet.
And according to a new report, 56% of Americans plan to cut back on spending because of COVID, with 64% of consumers saying they're now very concerned about the virus, a 25% jump in the last month.
There's a lot of uncertainty right now. What would normally be our busy time of the year has been sort of busy.
And then there's supply chain slowdowns.
I have an order right now where I can't fulfill it because my supplier doesn't have the product, that hasn't made it here from other countries. So that's money I'm losing.
And rising prices mean school supplies are more expensive this year. But NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how parents can save on back-to-school shopping.
This back-to-school season, inflation and the global pandemic are changing the way parents shop. Prices for consumer goods are going up, and parents are spending more.
In fact, the National Retail Federation estimates that parents are going to spend over $800 for kids in grades K through 12. And that includes everything from clothing to your regular school supplies, backpacks, to even those tech items like laptops and headphones and tablets.
Parents can save on products like laptops and tablets by purchasing refurbished items and save between 30 and 60%. But make sure the item comes with a warranty before buying. Back-to-school shopping season can also be an opportunity to teach kids about money and finance.
So first of all, have them sit down with you and look through that list, write out a budget, explain how much can be spent, and have them shop around with you. You know, depending on the age of your child, they could be a little bit more involved the older they get, but even younger children.
The pandemic has also changed the way consumers shop, as many retailers have shifted efforts to online sales. Some experts recommend consumers shop online so they can compare prices easily.
So I think when we think about online shopping, that can be a really convenient way for parents to really buy things that go straight to their door. Maybe that's a great way to kind of price check on items.
And it's not just Amazon delivering quickly anymore. Target and Walmart have caught up. And in some cases, browser extensions may offer cashback features. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News, though. It's Stephanie at Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.